So now, which are the different implications of CVD in disease? And I will start with fibrinolysis in cardiovascular disease risk, and I will show some illustrations which demonstrate that fibrinolysis impaired function is a major contributor to cardiovascular disease and to arterial thrombosis. First, now there is evidence, many epidemiological studies are showed that PI1 is associated with high triglycerides concentration, with elevated insulin, and with a high BMI over 25 and much more over 30. So most of the cardiovascular disease risk factor cluster in patients which have the insulin syndrome, and especially PI1 is highly increased in this patient. So there is also evidence that decreased fibrinolytic activity increase in vivo fibrin deposition, and this contributes to increase the risk of thrombosis. And you know, this process is very slow on time, and so it can remain silent and occult for many months or years. And in atherosclerosis, TPA, the UPA receptor and PI1 are overexpressed in smooth muscle cells, in endothelial cells, and also in the atheromatous plaque, which contributes to lower fibrinolysis and to also don't allow this plaque to be spontaneously dissolved. Other factors of evidence of fibrinolysis implication in cardiovascular disease is that elevated PI1 predicts restenosis following angioplasty. And some reports now propose that PI1 should be considered as a true component of the metabolic syndrome. Because when you adjust for PI1, then you can see that the risk for the other factors is lowered. So PI1 by itself contributes to the severity and the risk associated with this metabolic syndrome. And PI1 in addition contributes to adipose tissue development and in the control of insulin signaling in adipocytes. So it contributes to increase the adipocyte deposits, and then the risk associated with the metabolic syndrome. And you know, epidemiological studies show that fibrinolytic activity decreases with age, and we can notice that there is an increase of TPA and PI1, and it can be paradoxal because TPA triggers fibrinolysis, while PI1 diminishes it. But now there is a high level of evidence to show that high TPA, and I will explain it later, TPA is associated with an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, and it can also be a predictor of this risk. So PI1 has not only a hypercoagulable action in lowering fibrinolysis potential, but by itself it has also other deleterious activities, such as promoting release of microparticles from endothelial cells, and these microparticles have a procoagulant potential. It also contributes to endothelial cell dysfunction, and you know that these dysfunctions are a major factor for inducing cardiovascular disease, and elevated PI1 is an hallmark for these endothelial cell dysfunctions. And PI1 also decreases the exposure of UPAR on endothelial cells, but there is an increase of soluble forms of UPAR in blood circulation, and we can also observe an increased concentration of microparticles exposing this UPAR receptor. And you show here a slide showing the generation of microparticles from stimulate endothelial cells as extract from this recent paper from Traboletti et al. In the American Journal of Pathology. Now, another implication, which is less documented, at least at my knowledge, is fibrinolysis and fertility. And there is now increasing evidence that fibrinolysis is involved in not only in fertility, in fecundation, nidation, and fetal development. And you saw some examples this morning with your presentation. And some experimentations using TPA or UPA deficient mice show that they have a decreased ovulation deficiency. But if you suppress only one of them, you don't decrease the deficiency. You need to suppress both. You mean that for fertility, one of the plasminogen activators can be substituted by the other one. Another level of evidence is that the semen of infertile men have a much lower TPA and UPA concentrations, and they have an impaired fibrinolysis activity. In cell remodeling, fibrinolysis has also strong implications as UPA, its receptor, and TPA regulate the cell remodeling. And we have some examples, for example, in the liver matrix remodeling, as fibrinolysis activation contributes to clearance of necrotic cells. So a good fibrinolysis activity is required for allowing liver regeneration. PAI-1 is involved in vessel wall remodeling, and it interacts not only with matrix metalloproteinase but also with growth factors. So it regulates angiogenesis and vessel wall remodeling. And fibrinolysis also regulates blood-brain barrier, and it has many interactions and help in disease. And one experimental example is that an impaired fibrinolysis facilitates migration of tumor cells across this barrier, and it allows to have to promote metastasis of some coming from some brain tumors. Another involvement of fibrinolysis is in hematopoiesis through a plasminogen fibrinolytic pathway, which is required for hematopoietic regulation. And this recent study has shown how it works. TPA activates plasminogen into plasmin, which in turn activate MMPs. And the major MMP which activate is MMP9, and in a much lesser extent MMP2. And this activate MMP9, then mediates the release of the KIT ligand from stromal cells, and that contributes to regulation of hematopoiesis. TPA therefore promotes cell differentiation from bone marrow. In brain also, fibrinolysis has a very important function, maybe the most important of all the different body functions. And fibrinolysis is a major system which is present in brain. And it is involved in many different brain functions, contributing to knowledge. It probably protects from Alzheimer's disease, and there are now more and more papers showing that deficient fibrinolysis then is unable to clear beta amyloid component aggregates deposits from brain. And this has been also demonstrated using TPA knockdown mice model. By contrast, when it is excessive in brain, it can contribute to matrix degradation and aneurysm. And also, you know, TPA has a dual function in brain. It is necessary, but not too much, as I will show in the next slide. Reactive fibrinolysis to cerebral thrombosis can contribute to brain damage, especially in stroke, if the control is not appropriate. And it is also mediated through TPA fibrinolysis activation and matrix metalloproteinase, mainly MMP2 and then MMP9.